In a world overrun with the fake, delusional, and disingenuous, he stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
Welcome to the Abuki Cabal Show.
What's going on, folks? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Abuki Cabal, but my friends call me Rodney. Today we're gonna dip into some interesting developments that have been happening here in the anti-vaxxer community. And before I get started, again, I want to thank all my supporters, people who have made contributions, donations, folks who have given me encouraging words to try to keep doing what I'm doing, and those who want me to look for certain information, do shows about certain things. I appreciate all of you guys. This has been fun and also necessary. If you are watching the content, if you could, please, take out the time. It doesn't take but a second. Just hit the like button. My likes are not matching the views, and I'd like to get those to match up, because if I had the same number of likes as I have on views and subscribers, I'd be well over 1,000 now. I'd appreciate it, if you guys could help me get up to that, so that we can just keep improving the channel and moving along and getting you the information that you enjoy and that you need. Excuse me. Okay, that out of the way. Let's talk about the effect that the COVID Delta variant is having on some of the anti-vaxxer communities. Excuse me. We have a young lady in Florida who lost 6 members of her unvaccinated family, Black lady, to COVID-19 within 3 weeks. Okay. After that happened, she was so moved by the events that she had to endure and the vaccine hesitancy that, raged in her family, that, she has been going door to door, trying to get people to get vaccinated. She finally got vaccinated. You have these people who are out here, and this isn't the first time that we've heard of whole families, families that were in Chicago, Detroit area, who lost family members, Atlanta, who lost family members. The way it spread quickly in Atlanta was through members of a family going to a funeral, and from there it spread out and took out people very quickly. We have Lori Loomer. She's a far-right conspiracy theorist. She described battling COVID as getting hit by a bus. Yet not too long ago, she said if she were to get sick, it would be no worse than eating bad fajitas. And then you see her down here on her own tweet where she says, I hope I get COVID just so I can prove to people I've had bouts of food poisoning that are more serious and life-threatening than a hyped up virus. So then she says later on, just pray for me, please. Can't even begin to explain how brutal the body aches and nausea that come with COVID are. I am in so much pain. This is honestly the worst part about it. And I saw some other tweets that she did, and she takes it seriously now. I mean, she was going through hell with that disease, yet she irresponsibly told people time and time again to not get vaccinated. The virus is hyped up. It's not what it is, and this is coming from people who have no scientific background, who have done no research into what's going on with the vaccines, what's going on with the virus. They just don't care. And they have an agenda. Besides that is political. They don't care if you get sick. They don't care if you die. They just have an agenda that they're pushing to make you not take this seriously so that you will do what they want you to do, which is to move in a fashion that is beneficial to them in a political manner or a political way. Okay. You have another this individual here who wrote a tweet. Said the weird thing is that anti-vaxxers or vaccine hesitant people don't listen to their peers who belatedly realize they were wrong. Okay. And here you got down here on Newsweek, the anti-vaccine activist who said there's no epidemic, dies of COVID. So that's what we're dealing with. And we're dealing with this on a weekly basis. There are so many people who are dying who were out here advocating that people not take things seriously. And you see this guy here, he's on a setup, and that's a tube system that directly pumps oxygen into his nose just so that he can, breathe normally. And I can tell you guys from experience, even though you're doing all of that, these people are not satting properly and can, go from okay to not so good in a short amount of time. And I'm gonna get into some descriptions that some of the nurses around the country have been talking about in some of the social media platforms that we go to, that we talk to each other about what we're experiencing out here, and how bad it is, or how whether it is as bad as they say in the media. And I'm going to give it to you straight, because I think that the reason why a lot of people are not taking this seriously is because here in the United States, we tend to coddle adults with everything from sexual activity, nudity, things that aren't that big a deal in other countries, because you're an adult. They expect that these things are going to happen. Even with death and things like that, and sickness, they don't so much coddle people in these other countries. Whereas here in the United States, we give people rosy imagery and tend to work on this eerie honor system of doing the right thing, and it's almost mythological, So these people are faced with a possibly horrific encounter with a viral infection, yet you don't see much of it. You don't see what they should be showing you, which is these people in these areas, in these emergency rooms, these ICUs, and show how it's affecting these hospitals, which only have so much capacity. And the bigger situation now is staffing. If you don't have the staffing to take care of the patients. You can have all the beds in the world, but if you don't have nurses and ancillary staff to take care of these people, and doctors also, then, it's all going to be bust. You'll be overwhelmed. It'll be, the only closest thing I can tell to a layman is imagine, yourself being able to manage a situation where, people are coming through, at a reasonable rate. You can take care of, say, 6 patients. Now, this is a small number, but say you can take care of 6 patients. And, at first you have 2 coming in at a time, then 3, then 6, and before you can manage the ones that you have, you got 6 more coming in, and then 12 more coming in. And then, that number just keeps increasing, but you can only take care of 6. You only have equipment for 6. If you bump up the capacity and you get 6 more beds, okay, then you bring those 6 in, but you still have a bottleneck of patients. You have more patients to see than you have space to assess and to take care of these people. I was watching a person in an emergency room, black guy, who basically when you come in, he was sick, and he came into the emergency room. So when you come into the emergency room, you have to be assessed, and an assessment basically means that we look at you and we take vital signs on you to see, whether you're having blood pressure issues, whether you're having temperatures, how you're oxygenating your blood, through respirations. Those things we have to do, and we can do some of those through with instrumentation or with visualization, palpation, physical touch of the patient. We can do those things. Okay. So then you may have to draw blood. We may have to, do a nasal swab to determine whether you have active virus in your nose or not. And all of those things have to be cultured. They have to be, we have a rapid test that we can do with a machine that takes 30 minutes. That if you don't have that, then we have to send it to the lab. It can be done in the lab. There are numerous ways to determine whether that person has the virus. So this individual, during the assessment, he refuses to have anything placed in his nose. Then he refuses to have blood drawn. So then security is called because the guy is acting like they're trying to dismember him or something inside of this place. And you have all of these people. You have nurses, doctors, and security staff in there trying to get him to calm down and telling him this is a normal procedure for them to basically assess you as a patient and determine the next course of action as to, what they're going to do. Yet, the fear that is overwhelming people at this point, as if they're going to be, implanted with some sort of something, that's going to do them harm, is just, it's crazy. It really is. It's almost to the point to where it could be a diagnosis in itself. And that's unfortunate. It's just a wave of paranoia that is enveloping our occupation. And I'm going to read a little bit of that, and we'll go into some of that. But I want to look at an article here that Mike V sent me. Thanks. Shout out to Mike V. Appreciate you with that. So this article is about Missouri hospital workers who are being assaulted on the job and how panic buttons are being installed to allow them to summon security. Okay. You don't normally see this except for like if you're in a prison infirmary or something like that. We've never had to do things like that. You could, use a phone if you needed security or something like that. But now it's gotten so bad that nurses and doctors are being assaulted for just trying to take care of patients. And, this is getting crazy, y'all. So I'm going to read this article to you guys. In the past year, Nurse Ashley Blevins says she has witnessed unparalleled violence at her hospital in Branson, Missouri, where Cox Medical Center staff have been cursed at, spat on, and even bitten by patients in the emergency department. Our patients are becoming increasingly violent lately, Blevins told KYTV. Says, according to the hospital, violence against its staff increased dramatically from 2019 to 2020, with the pandemic greatly compounding the issue. The number of assaults increased from 40 to 123, while reported injuries jumped from 17 to 78, the hospital said. In response to the violence, up to 400 staff members will soon have panic buttons attached to their badges. Wow, the hospital said. If a staff member is having trouble with a patient, they can press the button that immediately alerts security guards and activates a tracking system. If a staffer is being assaulted in a patient's room, pushing the button will activate a custom light outside the room, the hospital explained. It's nice to have the chance to press our button and security knows exactly where we are. And if we end up having to chase a patient down, they'll know where our last location is, Blevins told the station. The uptick in violence is not limited to the Missouri Medical Center. By fall of 2020, several months into the pandemic, hospital workers described a noticeable increase in workplace violence as they enforce masking requirements and strict visitor rules, WebMD reported. A November survey of 15,000 registered nurses by the National Nurses United, a major nurse union, found that approximately 20% of respondents said they were experiencing increased violence on the job. Yet workplace violence against healthcare professionals was a growing concern before the pandemic. In 2018, medical workers accounted for 73% of all non-fatal workplace injuries arising from violence, according to data collected by the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. At that time, workers in healthcare and social service professions were 5 times as likely to suffer a violent injury than those in other industries, the Bureau reported. Okay, the Cox Medical Center in Branson said the numbers have only grown worse during the pandemic, with assaults on its staff tripling in the past year. This summer, hospitals in Southwest Missouri have been under particular strain as they experienced a surge in the coronavirus cases, driven by unvaccinated residents and the highly transmissible Delta variant. In late June, Cox Hospital in Springfield, about 40 miles north of Branson, was forced to turn some patients away as the surge intensified. Blevins, the nurse in Branson, said her hospital is facing large crowds and wait times as well. And that's frustrating on the patients. That's frustrating on us. And I think that's increasing a lot of the violence, she said. She and her colleagues hope the panic buttons will make a difference. To see these numbers are doubling, tripling, and continuing to go up, especially the physical, it's very unnerving, said Angie Smith, who handles hospital safety, told KOLR. Okay. Well, there you have it. and I will go into a little bit of what my colleagues are saying here. And this is regarding what we're actually seeing when we treat these patients. Let me get back to this scene here. So, it says COVID is so much worse than the public could imagine. Okay. Now, this is a trigger warning because this is going to be brutally honest. Says, yeah, I know you all know. And this is a person who's writing this. It says, but up until now, I had been on a unit sequestered away from COVID. I took a job in an MICU just over a month ago, and we are starting to fill back up with COVID plus patients. So that's COVID and their normal patients. My God, it's more horrifying than what I had pictured from everyone sharing their stories. Every single COVID patient I have had has been in their 30s, overweight, but no other medical issues. It's one thing to have an elderly person intubated with a few chronic conditions who's septic and riding the vent. It's a totally other beast to admit a patient who is walking and talking on a 30-liter to 50% HFNC with SATs in the mid-low 90s, who over the course of 6 hours gets up to 50 liters, and that's oxygen, at 100%, plus the non-rebreather, and that's the form of the mask that allows you to up the oxygen concentration without causing the person to decompensate, because if the oxygen level is not at a certain percentage and the CO2 is at a certain percentage, then the mechanical mechanism of respiration can't take place. So gas exchange cannot take place. Your diaphragm won't work properly. You won't be able to breathe. So that's what that means. Says plus non-rebreather. Best SpO2 is at 91%. So if you're still in the 90s, you're still good. But the low 90s, I mean, you get kind of concerned, especially if the person was high 90s or mid to low 90s, and then they're constantly dropping within a 6-hour period. You know something's wrong. Okay, says just lying in bed, and the second they reach for their phone, they desat into the 70s. So just reaching for a phone, and that's a minor, movement. I mean, we all know. And then this person drops down into the 70th percentile of blood oxygenation. And we know this because we have a pulse oximeter on your finger, and it tells us exactly how much oxygen is being transferred from your lungs into your bloodstream and being passed through your body, through your circulatory system and to your tissues. If that drops in below the 90s, you're in trouble. Okay. This 70s right here, and a respiratory rate in the 40 and the 50s, your respiratory rate should be anywhere from 16 to 18. Okay. So this is respiratory distress that we're talking about. And this is from a person who was doing okay 6 hours ago. Okay. So you almost have to watch that one patient constantly to try to make sure that you can keep them alive, because they can swing for the fences and in no time. Okay. So that's what she's talking about. Okay. So she goes on to say, begging them to self-prone as it's their last hope, but they just won't do it. They can't tolerate the BiPAP. And that is the system that I was just talking about with the man over here on the other side. With the nasal system here. That's a BiPAP. And what that does is it makes it easier. It assists you to breathe. It's almost like a vent, but just a little bit, less invasive and less involved. I'll just say that. That's a good layman's term. So it assists you to breathe, helps you. Some people sleep with them to prevent them from snoring. And, even in that process, you have some degree of desats, which we're trying to prevent. However, that system and what she's talking about is you're telling this person to self-prone, which means for you to lay on your belly because you can breathe better that way. And they put you on the BiPAP system, which is going to force air into your lungs, oxygenated air with also pressure to help you breathe and maintain a certain blood oxygenation level. Okay. So, and another thing that happens if your blood oxygenation level drops down and maintains that it can't be maintained, then over time, then your tissues aren't being oxygenated properly, your brain isn't being oxygenated properly, and you go from bad to worse. So okay, let's move on here. So you talk to them about their kids, their spouses, and what they do for a living, the vacation they're supposed to go on next week. You watch them wither away over a few days until they don't even have the energy to talk to their own family, until it's time to intubate. And she explains what intubation is. Okay, intubation is when, pretty much you give the person propofol. First time you guys probably heard of propofol is with Michael Jackson. But yes, it's a paralyzing agent that basically allows us to insert a tube into your lungs in order to force air into your lungs and to oxygenate you. And it works on a system where it maintains the oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in order to breathe for you because you cannot breathe for yourself. Okay. So we intubate the patient, we give them the propofol, and we have them prone. Okay. They're prone. Okay. Now, my patients that I had, when I did this a lot, I never saw a person who was prone and intubated ever. But this is what they're doing now in order to get the best effects. Okay. So, let's say, okay, paralyzed, prone, and we stay in that purgatory for what feels like forever. Peak pressures at 35 or more, shitty volumes, sats still not that great. And, they're basically telling you the levels from the machine are extremely high. The pressures are high. Your oxygenation levels are low, even though you're pushing the machine to give you better levels, as best you can. So it's a fight to try to maintain, a normal levels, oxygenation levels with that patient. Okay. So she says that all those levels still aren't giving you the success that you need with that endeavor. So they're not an ECMO candidate. And if you want to look that up, it's ECMO. And nephrology is hesitant to start CVVH. So you are pretty much going into renal failure. And we all know where this is going. Even if they make it off the vent, they'll have been paralyzed for 2 or more weeks with so much atrophy. And atrophy means when your muscles start to deteriorate because you don't move. If you don't move, you see this with astronauts who go into space. They have some degree of atrophy. They have to do do exercises to try to maintain that because they don't have the forces of, pushing against gravity on Earth's surface to maintain their musculature and whatnot. So you have the same situation there. And with these people being, paralyzed for so long and on the vent for so long, and you have an 80% chance of not coming off the vent when you get put on one. But if they put you on one, you probably need to be on one. And then, they're not even talking about, not having enough equipment, for the number of patients that you're having to do. But we'll finish your story here. Let me stop talking. So he says, okay. Somebody actually, it will take months to just be able to walk again if they're on the vent for 2 weeks like that, and you start to have that level of atrophy. Okay, it says they'll likely have a trach, which is a tube that is inserted through your throat, and you breathe through that. And it says in parentheses, if they're stable enough for surgery in the first place, for them to get that trach. Okay, it says they'll be in a rehab facility, unable to get to their kids' soccer games, unable to eat real food or sleep in bed with their spouses. It's absolutely terrifying knowing this could be the fate of any of us. And I still have family members who won't get vaccinated. All I can say is I am humbled to be here with you all, and so amazed at those of you who made it through those first waves. Whether you are still at the bedside or not, I'm here with you and hope to take some of the burden off. So here, that's basically where nurses are basically relying on each other and telling each other stories and trying to get each other to continue the process of doing what we got in this to do, and that's to help people and to try to save lives. Okay. Here's another person who responded. It says, exactly. I have a friend that works transport part-time and told me how they sent a vent patient to an LTAC, and that's a long-term acute care facility, with a 12 of PEEP and an 8 of Versed. So that Versed is like, it's anesthesia, conscious sedation. So they basically sedated this patient and transported this patient to another facility, which is like a step down ICU facility. Okay. And he finishes off to say they needed the hospital bed, I guess. Absolutely insane. And you're seeing that. You're seeing people who are still in bad shape, still have ICU level concerns and being transferred to other facilities like these LTACs. And I used to work LTACs also. And you're pretty much in the same situation. You just move to another facility so that they can make room so that they can take care of other patients. Okay. So that's a way of them trying to, take off some of the pressure. Okay. Here's another one. And this was a RN master's level nurse. Says, I've been saying this since the beginning. It's like a stroke. Surviving it is just the first part. Okay. And then here's another one that responds to that said, it's like they're physically incapable of understanding the concept that surviving does not mean all is back to normal. Out of curiosity, are many of your patients also on dialysis? And some of them do have to go on dialysis. And, that's rough too. Basically cleaning toxins out of your blood because, you start to have organ failure and damage to your other organs because of the cytokine reaction that is taking place as a result of the body reacting to this virus. Okay. So then you have another response that says, there are worse things than death. And I think that's what we're not getting out to the public about this situation. You may survive it, but we're still learning about some of the long-term consequences of you getting this stuff in the first place. And if you go, damage to your organs, your tissues. I'm going to read another article. I guess I may have to do that in another video. I don't want this to go too long, but let's finish this up. And you have another RN down here that says this is such an ugly truth. And that's true. Okay, here's another one that says, yes, I work outpatient and we see them from hospital follow-ups. These are the ones who are doing well and were not sent to a rehab. They are coming in for oxygen orders, home health and physical therapy, walkers, wheelchairs, and shower chairs, referrals to cardiology and pulmonology, and are complaining of continued debilitating fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pains, and swelling from heart failure. It doesn't just all go away when you get discharged. So there you have some of these ongoing problems that you're going to see in these patients when they get this and they're not vaccinated. Okay. So here's another one. Here's another nurse that says he's in H&H, and some of these terms are different from state to state. H&H COVID team nurse as well. It says one particular thing is just how different long-term complications I have run into. A patient in her 40s who was healthy before now has a resting heart rate of 115 and chronic sinusitis for 2+ months. Have a coworker who developed a reactive airway disease, developed reactive airway disease. She now works in the office to avoid triggering it. COVID brain fog with a diabetic patient who, after years of managing her blood sugar, was unable to properly use her lancet and went into full-on anxiety attack due to the frustration. That on top of all the more common ones, CHF, that's congestive heart failure, fibrosis, headaches. Despite this, I bet our nursing staff is only 40 to 50% vaccinated. And this is a guy in rural Ohio. Okay. Here's another one that says, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, we got another master's level APRN, which is an advanced practice RN. They're kind of like doctors, a little under that, more like a physician's assistant, kind of like old, But anyway, they're advanced. Okay, and it says, this is only firsthand H&H perspective I've read so far, and it's as horrifying as I expected. They need your emotional support as much as they need your physical support, if not more. Thank you so much. Okay, here's another one. You know what really bothers me about 98% survival rate people? It's that most people who quote that are not in the same risk category. That quote encompasses the entire population who has been infected with COVID, many of which are healthy young people. The statistic does not include 60-year-old fat diabetic with COPD. If COVID has taught me one thing, that it is, if it's taught me one thing, that is that people are horrible at risk analysis. Okay, there's another one that says, this pandemic was the first I had heard of post-intensive care syndrome. Several years ago, I had pulmonary edema and spent 3 days in the hospital, starting with the ICU. As the pandemic has unfolded, I've been following scientists and healthcare recommendations, often ahead of the CDC. And in May of 2020, my workplace started to discuss return to the office, and I panicked. Thankfully, I have had the support I need to manage my situation. Also, I am still working from home more than a year later. Thank you all for what you do. I am sorry that so many don't believe how bad it gets. Okay, here's another one that says, that's exactly it. I don't care what the supposed survival rates are. It's not a risk I'm willing to take by any means. Also, just wanted to say, bless you for your work in home health. It's so important to meet people where they are. Often in the hospitals, we optimize people to a standard they just won't/can't meet at home. I truly believe home health is the healthcare of the future, and we need to invest more into it. And that's a good point. And what she means by that is, she or he, you basically get this person optimized at a high level of being able to take care of themselves and do things to manage their ailments. But when they get home, they're on their own. They don't have the help that they have in the hospital. We just give you, home health gives you a whole bunch of stuff, whatever you need, shower chairs, wheelchairs, all that stuff. And they turn you loose at home, and now it's getting harder and harder for you to pay for nurses to come see you at home health and do all these things because during the previous administration, a lot of people don't know this, but everybody stopped paying. The VA stopped paying, states stopped paying, so a lot of home health businesses went bust. I know a person who actually ran a home health business that I helped out with some of her stuff, and she went belly up because she couldn't get paid. And had numerous patients that are still calling her, asking if she'll reopen. I mean, it's that bad. And they did this to save money, yet they had the money to pay these people. They just chose not to. And you guys can look into that. I may pull up some information on that and show how some of this stuff collapsed. The healthcare system was a layered system. And I think I've said this in some other videos. You had rural hospitals, you had clinics, you had urgent care places who could basically take the pressure off of the main hospitals in the bigger cities. Okay, so now a lot of those rural hospitals have gone bust. So all of the healthcare is basically being funneled into whatever hospitals you have inside the city. I mean, that's in this state. Now I know how it used to be. It used to be stratified, but now not so much. So it makes it a lot less. It reduces your capability of being able to handle situations like what we're in right now. But hindsight is 20/20. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, here's another RN ICU nurse that says, our ICU is filled with people who have been there for weeks, paralyzed and prone for 18 hours a day, not making any improvement. Day after day, we pump them with meds, flip them like pancakes, and see their horrible swollen and bruised faces, stick lines and tubes in every available orifice, working tirelessly for 12 hours straight on them with no breaks, and none of it will make a difference. Maybe one of these people will survive and walk out of the hospital. One or two might make it to be trached and pegged. So that's a tracheotomy and a peg tube, which is a tube that, we basically feed you through because you can't eat. Okay. The rest will die. It's so freaking depressing. If people could just see that this is their fate or the fate of their loved ones, this is not rare anymore. ICUs in every city all over the country and the world are filled with people just like them. And if they would just get vaccinated, it could be prevented. So frustrating. So here you hear the frustration of the nurses and the doctors who are basically just, burnt out. These people are having apprehension for the next wave that's going to come through. You see, people are saying, thank God, you guys made it the first time. And, a lot of people are saying, I don't know if I have what it takes to go through this next round. If this next round, which all projections are saying this next round's could be worse than the first one. Vaccinations, are up, but, my state is only at 30%. A lot of the southern states are, less than that. Excuse me. Wow, should have got something to drink. Okay, so here you have one nurse that says, just take me out back and bury me if I ever get like this. Okay. And you have a lot of nurses that feel that way. There's a lot of them that say, look, I'm not going through that. Just let me die, And, if you have people who work with this type of stuff every day who are saying these types of things, you need to listen, and people are being, political about it. They're being tactful. They're not really saying very much. They're being optimistic and telling you, hey, we can get through this. We can do it. If you guys would get vaccinated, hey, that'd be great. But you have the people who are actually taking care of these people who are losing it almost, and describing horrific situations in these MICUs and ICUs. Okay. So here's another one. And this one is a nursing student who is also, and sometimes when you're in nursing school, you're still working, it says, if the condition is irreversible, or put a time limit if there's no improvement. I know younger coworkers that put a 2-week max vent time if there's no improvement. So what she's talking about is basically getting a DNR. That means a do not resuscitate, or a DNI, do not even initiate any or intubate. Okay. Okay, here's another one that says, I'm 65 and made a POLST last year, power of attorney. It's no CPR, no ECMO, vent only if it's not taking it away from a younger person in better shape. So you got older people here that are basically saying, okay, if it's a younger person, don't even put me on it. Don't even try to resuscitate me. I had a good life, Okay. Then you got people on here who are basically asking how to get their legal affairs together in order to, if they get exposed to this while taking care of people, they don't want to, they don't want to live like this. They don't want to be, if they're that jacked up, they just want to go on. Okay. So here's another one, RN, BSN, ICU. This is a young lady, says, yep, almost 2 years of this. I made it very clear to my husband that if I end up with COVID, I was making myself a DNR or DNI. And in the event of a trauma, they could go a week or so on a vent, but I refuse a trach or a peg tube. Okay. So there's another one, says, you don't get used to the swollen, messed up faces. Every time I help flip someone, I always have a holy shit moment because it's so gross. It looks like we're keeping a bloated corpse alive. And I apologize, but I feel like you guys need to know this. Here's another one. RNICU says they do not look like the same person that first came in whatsoever. You're exactly right. These people look like corpses. We had a patient last night who was a DNR or a DNI/DNI, maxed on high flow, struggling to breathe, who just kept screaming, kill me, kill me. I felt like I was in a horror movie. It feels like we're torturing these people every single day, and I hate it so much. So, this is I think I've described this, to you guys, how we, you come to work sometimes, man, you're sitting in the parking lot and you're having to get yourself together just to be able to walk into the building. You're having to pep talk yourself to walk in the building to do what you have to do and to prepare yourself to see what you're going to see. And I think, the public needs to know that, especially when you're out here attacking nurses, attacking doctors, attacking people who choose to get vaccinated, attacking people when they ask you if you've been vaccinated, attacking people if they ask you to wear a mask. I mean, it's really getting juvenile, and I can tell you, I worked through that first wave. I was talking to some of you guys during that first wave and telling some of you guys what I was seeing on the ground. And it was totally different than what the news was telling people. And it's going to be that way again. I mean, the news isn't covering it right now. I mean, they're saying that, the numbers are going down. Yeah, but we still have a lot of sick people out here. I'm still taking care of people with trachs, still having to deal with people, on peg tubes and having, bad, horrible situations that are being, moved down, but they're not necessarily moved to other locations, but they still require a higher level of care. I'll keep going here. Okay, here's another RN, and this is a PICU nurse. It says, I struggle with this all the time. In cardiac PICU, there's almost several patients on the unit, almost always several patients on the unit that it feels morally wrong to still provide care for. I've been there before. Okay, here's a doctor who came in talking about it. He said, this is harrowing, but it alarms me that so many people will read this and call it out as bullshit because they don't want to accept that this is happening. Okay, here's another nurse. Says, yes, that's exactly what their faces look like. It's like they're not even people anymore. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Okay, here's another ICU nurse. Says, we have had multiple patients who get stuck on their belly. I think one patient went almost a week before he died. I still remember flipping one patient that was bleeding from his nose and mouth and got him supine, just on his back, and he was just covered in blood. He was on a high PEEP of 100%. As well, we had x-rays waiting outside just because we had no idea how long he could tolerate it. So they're flipping him, trying to get him, and they had him topped out, trying to get him oxygenated. And, there's only so long that you can do that, and that's why they were, trying to, have all the people to be able to do diagnostics on him to see if, what the situation was. And he's basically just describing that. Okay, here's another one that says, excuse me if this has been answered, but why do they bloat and bruise in the face? And it's from laying prone / face down for hours on end, because you're not supposed to lay like that for long periods of time. But that being said, that's what we're looking at, folks. And I hope this is helpful. I will continue to put out information and to give it to you straight, so that you can make an informed decision. But don't allow these people who are out here saying that, that things are false and all of that. I mean, look, Fox News has been saying forever that that this is a hoax and that you didn't need to be vaccinated. But, now all of a sudden they're saying that you need to be vaccinated. But guess what? They were 90% of their employees were vaccinated while they were telling the general public to not get vaccinated and that it was a hoax. Now, I don't know how many of you people, out here are aware of ethical responsibilities. But if you're not, just, go on Wikipedia, look up ethics, and just read through that a little bit. That is ethically irresponsible to be in a news agency and to give people information that is contrary to them living a prosperous, fruitful life and not be exposed to a horrible viral infection. So that being said, this went on kind of long, but I wanted to get this information out. I probably should have split it up a little bit, but hopefully I didn't go on too long. Appreciate you guys. I hope you guys stay safe. Wow. Just kind of brings back memories. Seen a lot of people like this. But I appreciate you guys listening. Please if I can get, my likes up and my subs up, if I can get my subs at the same number of the number of viewers, I've got, thousands of people looking. I've only got, the number of subs that I have. If you could please subscribe, please like, in the same numbers that people are viewing this, I would appreciate it. It'll help me out so much. And I can continue to do this and help you guys to move to learn about things that you want to learn about. Thank you guys so much.
You are listening to Abuki Cabal, the analytical savage.
I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.